Today, we're honored to have on the phone Wille. Chris is the chief of the Rainforest Alliance's Sustainable Agricultural Network, and Chris is coming in on a phone line from Costa Rica. And this is Chris. You're only our second international guest, and your biography reads like a book. So I don't want to waste our listeners' time going through all of your amazing accomplishments. But we're just honored and thankful to have you on with us today. And thanks for us taking our call all the way in the rainforest in Costa Rica. Welcome to Green is Good.
Well, thank you. Delighted to be here.
Hey, Chris, you're a California native and you're doing amazing work. Why don't you explain to our listeners how your journey a little bit, how you ended up where you ended up geographically speaking, and also with regards to the Rainforest Alliance. How did you end up with Rainforest Alliance? And then tell us a little bit about what the Rainforest Alliance really is. Even we don't know. We want to know this.
Okay. Well, as a young boy in Walnut Creek, California, I started getting an interest in butterflies and snakes and all wild creatures, and there was never any question in my mind what I wanted to do when I grew up, and that was to do something to help wildlife. And so I went to Oregon State University, got a degree in wildlife science, and have worked for environmental groups and government agencies such as the EPA ever since. The Rainforest Alliance started in New York with just a small group of volunteers about 20 years ago. My wife, Diane Jakovsky, and I were two of those volunteers, and we got the idea that what the rainforest really needed was a news agency located somewhere where there is rainforest to send information up north about what's happening to the rainforest, why it's important to you no matter where you live, and what you can do about it. So Diane and I came here to develop the Conservation News Bureau, and we started working with environmental groups here and journalists, teaching them how to cover the green beat and get that information flowing north and south. Diane is now the director of the Rainforest Alliance's Communications, Marketing, and Education Division. And early on here, in the early 90s, we saw the problems with the banana industry, which was expanding then, and cutting forests, contaminating streams, treating workers poorly, using way too many pesticides, and just doing pretty much everything wrong. And so we decided, let's tackle the banana industry. And that's how we got started in what we now call sustainable agriculture.
Which part of Costa Rica are you in, and how many offices around the world outside of Costa Rica and New York City do you have?
The Rainforest Alliance's agriculture and sustainable tourism programs are both based here in the capital city, in the Central Valley of Costa Rica. That's San Jose.
Okay.
And we have about 12 offices around the world, and in fact, even though our headquarters is in New York, we now have many more people outside of New York than in New York. And the organization is growing fast because more and more people, companies, farmers, loggers, tourism operators are interested in this sustainability idea, so they're coming to us for advice and services.
So you talked about the banana industry, and so use that as your example here. How have you affected that industry and brought sustainability into the banana industry, and how is that going to affect other food products that we enjoy in our daily diet with regards to your certification process and what you do with the whole sustainability movement?
The Rainforest Alliance started by tackling the tropical logging industry. And at that time, in the early 90s, the late 80s, there was a lot of call for boycotting tropical woods. with the idea being, well, if we stop buying tropical woods, people will quit cutting the forest. But we looked into boycotts, and we realized that they can call attention to a problem, but they don't solve the problem. So what we did in forestry is we brought together logging companies, foresters, government agencies, environmentalists, scientists, a whole bunch of people, locked them in a hotel in New York and said, don't come out until you have a better idea than a boycott. And what they emerged with were a code of good practice, because it is possible to take wood from a forest without destroying the ecological integrity of that forest. So we decided, instead of trying to punish the whole industry, let's find the good guys, those who are willing and interested in doing it right, help them to take timber from the forest in a sustainable way, verify that they're doing that, and then give them a green seal of approval. Well, that sounds like a pretty old idea now, but it was new then, and this led to the Smart Wood program, which verifies that loggers around the world, Smart Wood is working in 66 countries,
wow,
are doing it right and the best they can, and maintaining the productivity and the ecological integrity of the forest. And that led to the creation of a global movement called Forest Stewardship Council. So now there's lots of groups involved, lots of certifiers, and many forestry operations around the world are seeking this certification. And you can find on raw wood at your local lumber store, or on furniture, like in IKEA, or on lots of things like Gibson guitars, you can find the FSC seal, which means that the wood that went into that product came from a sustainably managed forest.
That's one.
Now, finally, to your question.
Sure.
Yeah. We did the same thing with bananas. We, in the early 90s, we brought together all the different people involved, banana farmers, banana companies, government agencies, environmentalists, and scientists. We worked for 2 years to develop standards for growing bananas in a responsible way. We cover everything, the social issues, community development, the labor issues such as freedom of association, good pay, safe working conditions, all the environmental issues such as controlling pesticides, protecting streams. We just stopped deforestation cold. Deforestation is prohibited, and farmers in the program must reforest where possible and provide environmental education to the kids of workers. All these things, access to health care. And it took us a few years to convince the banana industry to try it, but finally a farm manager from Chiquita adopted the system, found out that it worked pretty well, it didn't destroy productivity, and in fact, they learned eventually that it increased the production of bananas and decreased their cost. So Chiquita eventually got all of their plantations certified, and all of the plantations that supply them, the small independent farms. Now we have about 1 in 5 of all the bananas in the international marketplace come from Rainforest Alliance certified farms.
And what is that? And we're going to go to a commercial in a second, but what does that certification look like when we're looking for Rainforest Alliance certified products? Is there a certain logo or a certain icon that we should look for and our listeners should look for?
Yep, absolutely. It's a little green frog in a circle. It says Rainforest Alliance certified.
Perfect. Our listeners are going to hear a lot more, Chris, when we come back from a commercial about all the other products you're affecting, like coffee and others with your certification. And come on back so you can hear Chris Wille and the Rainforest Alliance's efforts to make sure that green is good.
If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Hey, welcome back to Green is Good. We've got Chris Wille on the phone from the Rainforest Alliance. He's on the phone from Costa Rica. Hey, Chris, you gave a great story and a great example of certifying the whole banana process with Chiquita. Tell us a little bit about your current coffee program and what that means in terms of certification and climate initiatives. And also then tell us about other products you've already certified and other products that you have in queue to certify so our listeners can look for your Rainforest Alliance certification frog icon. Tell us a little bit more about that, Chris.
Thanks, John. Will do. See, what we learned over the years is that most farms, no matter what they're growing, have the same environmental and social challenges. So the principles and standards that we developed for bananas are easily adapted to nearly anything else. And we work primarily with the big commodities like tea and coffee and cocoa because they affect so much land and so many people. For example, in coffee around the world, it dominates the middle altitudes where tropical forest once was, and it employs 25 million people. So it has a big effect on wildlife habitat, on water, on the environment, and on people. So we work with those big crops, but also we're doing a number of smaller things too, like mangoes and acai, that super berry from the Amazon, grapes from Chile, and so on. So you're beginning to see there in the U.S. You're beginning to see the seal and the Rainforest Alliance seal, which is a little green frog, on different products. You'll see it on. You can see the Rainforest Alliance's little green frog certification seal increasingly now in large and small shops in the U.S., the big stores like Walmart and Whole Foods, Sam's Club, and so on, to the smallest coffee shops and retail outlets. You'll see it on all kinds of products, different coffees like Caribou Coffee, U-Ban. You'll see it on Naked Juice, the smoothies.
Wow.
You'll see it on Newman's Own Chocolate. And now, just recently, Lipton, which is the biggest tea brand, launched certified Lipton tea in the U.S. They've already got it on store shelves throughout much of Europe and Australia.
What's your vision, Chris? How many farms, like when you vision this out, like when you dream about all of your hard work finally coming to fruition like this, it seems like the evolution has become a revolution now. And, you know, what's your goal? How many farms will be creating certified products, and how many products will be certified 5 years from now? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, we want to work with the biggest products that affect the most people and the most amount of land first.
Okay.
And those are they have the terrible name of commodities, but that's what they are: tea, coffee, cocoa, and citrus, and so on. But we expect agriculture we dream of and really expect that agriculture will reach a tipping point and just finally go all sustainable. And what we've seen is that both farmers and the food companies are beginning to realize that they need to get on the sustainability track, and soon, because the recession has taught companies that lesson, and there's a number of hardships, including global warming and price fluctuations and the increased cost of fertilizers and so on, that are making farming more and more challenging, just as we need to double our food production by 2050. So farmers are beginning to realize that hey, it's a good thing if they save a bit of forest, because that preserves their water supply. It's good if they protect biodiversity. The bees pollinate their coffee and increase their production, and the birds eat the pest. It's good if they treat their workers right, pay them more, and make sure they have safe, secure working environments, because then the workers are more loyal, more efficient, better trained, and more interested in making the farm run efficiently, smoothly, and productively.
So you're saying your proposition then is maybe the recent economic downturn has pushed more companies towards sustainability and towards your certification process?
Well, yeah, it seems to have awakened interest all along the value chain, from the growers to the traders and those middle people, the food companies, and consumers. And so I think it's a combination of things. It's the increased concern about global warming,
right,
which people are beginning to really notice now. And the hardships of the recession have just made people kind of wake up and smell the certified coffee. It's time to get sustainable.
And we're going to talk about coffee in a second. We want to ask you about coffee, but go back to something you said. You've talked about some wonderful brands, Lipton, and you've talked about Newman's Own, and even you threw in Whole Foods, which we would think, yeah, that's a no-brainer for them to use certified products from the Rainforest Alliance. But you also mentioned Walmart. Now, are you telling us and our listeners that Walmart's jumping on the sustainability and the green is good train? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, it may be a surprise to some, but Walmart is up in the lead car of that sustainability train.
That's good.
They are really interested in efficiency because they want to keep prices down, the prices they pay and the prices that their shoppers pay. So they are squeezing inefficiencies and redundancies out of the supply chains, and a lot of that's good. They're reducing packaging. They're requiring that farmers be more efficient and getting better quality, and they have a scorecard for their suppliers that they have to meet some check marks. They're squeezing a lot of the energy use out of their stores and their transportation. Such a big company makes a little change. It makes a huge difference.
Well, that makes sense. So you're really saying, sustainability, which its three major legs are people, planet, and profits. So the sustainability circle also means more efficiencies, which then co-ops the Walmarts into the process, which then goes back to what you said earlier of affecting the most people, getting the most bang for the buck. You bringing Walmart into this whole, certification process and having them buy in, you really get to affect the most people around the world. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really catching on, and I have to admit that some years ago I wondered if sustainability would ever, if the word and the concept would resonate with people. But we've seen some market research done by some of the companies we work with, and they talk to people on the street in for example, England and the U.S., and people generally get the idea, and they might not be able to define it the way it's defined in Wikipedia, but they know that sustainability means taking care of what we have so that future generations will have a chance, and being more efficient. And they understand that we can't do just one thing. We can't just try to save the environment without paying attention to people, or we can't just try to save people without taking care of the environment. And we can't do any of those things unless businesses, farms, logging operations, tourism operations, and the other businesses we work with are profitable. You can't do just one thing. You have to do it all at once in an integrated, holistic way.
Tell us a little bit now. Let's go to your coffee program. You mentioned climate initiatives earlier. How are you now building a climate initiative into your certified coffee program? How do they interrelate?
That's just my favorite subject. I'm delighted to talk about. And don't get me started on biofuels.
Oh, hey, listen, we want to hear about biofuels and biodiversity also. Our listeners want to know.
Yeah. Okay, but about climate and coffee. First of all, let's not forget that coffee and cocoa are two plants that evolved in the rainforest. So they grow best under the canopy of the rainforest. So it's one of those elusive but famous win-win situations where you can grow coffee or chocolate in harmony with the rainforest, in harmony with rainforest conservation. Our scientists, our biologists, say that a properly managed, forested, certified coffee or cocoa farm is the next best thing to real rainforest. So, and growing coffee under the shade of the rainforest or cocoa increases the quality of it. The expert cuppers on our staff, cuppers are those professionals who taste coffee, they can detect the shade in the coffee. They can tell this coffee was grown in the company of butterflies and bird song. So the connection then with climate is that, first of all, deforestation, especially in the rainforest, accounts for 20% of the greenhouse gases that cause climate change. That means that deforestation is as big a deal for the climate as transportation, all the cars, trucks, trains, and airplanes. And agriculture is responsible for about 70% of the deforestation. In addition, agriculture itself contributes 10% of the climate change gases. So we have to tackle agriculture if we're going to make any progress on cooling the planet. So if you're growing a forested crop like coffee or cocoa, then great, because that way we can save forest. We can even plant more trees, which our program requires farmers to do, and those trees will eat up that carbon dioxide, and at the same time providing water, wildlife habitat, and many other benefits for the local people.
Got it.
So we've developed a methodology that will allow us to verify that farms are planting trees and that those trees are growing. They have to keep them growing for 20 years.
Right.
And they can sell the carbon credits from their farm. So our vision is that in the not-too-distant future, farmers will be selling whatever they grow, bananas, coffee, cocoa, and at the same time selling a bit of carbon. So they're protecting the environment, helping cool the climate, and growing a better quality crop.
That is amazing. Hey, listen, Chris, we're winding down towards the end of this show, and I want to just thank you for being such a wonderful and inspirational guest. Our listeners, like Mike and I, are sitting here and we're looking at each other with our mouth open, are really amazed about all the great work the Rainforest Alliance is doing. What we want to ask you is if you would be kind enough to come back at a later time and explain more of the great work that you're doing, but we want to give our listeners an entry point. So we would love everyone to do a couple of things. Go to the Rainforest Alliance website, which is www.rainforest-alliance.org, and you can see all the great work that Chris and his colleagues are doing, and we all want to support the Green Frog and the certification process, so buy more products that are Rainforest Alliance certified. Chris, thank you for coming on Green is Good. Truly, you are an inspiration. Your work is brilliant, and you are living proof that green is good.